Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you guys today, where I am joined by two other hosts from other shows on this sports network. They are Jeremy Lapidus, as they are not showing up anymore on the screen. It was working just before this. It seems like my Discord has crashed. Of course. I had it working. All right. It should be good now. They are back on the screen. Here they are. Jeremy Lapidus and TJ McBrady. Both of them do just sports podcast or sports shows on this network, right? Both of them are big hockey fans, though, so they have a lot of talk with us. But before we get into that, I would like to remind you that if you would like to support the show in any way, we have the tips and donations link here on the screen, as I am having all sorts of technical difficulties. There it is. The tips and donations link on the screen if you want to ask any questions, support the show in any way. It's gsmcpodcast.net. But without further ado, we are going to get right into this one, where the Oilers beat the Stars by a score of 3-2 in double overtime last night. I think I'm going to start right off with Jeremy. Any takeaways from this game? What did you see when it came to the Oilers beating the Stars in Game 1?
I was really impressed by the Oilers' defense, and I know that's not usually what they're known for. That's usually their big weakness. You know, you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on the offensive end, but I was really impressed by their defense. They're really, in the last couple games, going back to Game 7 against the Canucks, their shot blocking and their ability to not give up those easy shots against these really good offenses. Obviously, you're going to have the explosive offense on their end, but the defense, their ability to play on the other end really, really impressed me in this first game.
Yeah, I agree. I've been kind of trashing on Darnell Nurse most of this playoffs because, he has that $9.25 million contract. He is being paid more than even Leon Draisaitl is on this Oilers team, and he has looked horrific. But in this game, he did impress me on that other side. Of course, he's still not showing up on the stat sheet, but what he does for that team can't really be portrayed through a stat sheet. What about you, TJ? What did you see on this one?
Well, Jeremy mentioned the defense, and part of what plays into that is the penalty kill has been terrific. And I don't think there has been a better team that has taken more advantage of the special teams opportunities. We know how good their power play is, but 20 straight penalty kills, the streak that they have going for them, and that included, you talk about stepping up in the biggest possible moments, killing off that double minor penalty that McDavid picked up to begin that first overtime period, to kill that off and continue this streak. I mean, we know how good the Oilers have been on the power play, most power play goals in the postseason so far, but underrated a little bit, I think, is the fact that they also have a 92.5 success rate on the penalty kill, and special teams as a whole have been dominant for them.
Yeah, for sure. Their power play, I talk about it every single time, every chance I get. When you have Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Evan Bouchard, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Evander Kane or Zach Hyman out on the ice together, it's magic. You just see so often Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid moving wherever they want to in the zone, and it's just like a well orchestrated orchestra where it's just the harmonies are coming together, and it's really a beautiful thing. One person I do want to, of course, highlight in this game has to be Connor McDavid. Getting the game-winning goal, the big guy stepping up in the playoffs, that's what you want to see. What makes this kind of differently than postseason runs that we've seen from the Oilers in the past, where this is where they've kind of fanned out in recent years? Is there a chance that they can get through this hump?
I think so, personally. They talked about coming out of last year, as much as this is an extremely talented group, they hadn't necessarily had any of these deep postseason runs, and headed into Colorado last year, they talked about the level of preparation that in some ways they almost lost the series before the games even started. And I think that we've seen now this Oilers team to go 7 games against the Canucks last round, coming back down 3-2, and being the team that really had, I thought, the more physical approach and the energy in this game to outlast the Stars in a double overtime matchup. I thought that was incredibly impressive, and I think it goes down to the mental makeup of this team is at a different spot this time around than they were last year.
Yeah, and going off a little bit of what TJ said, I mean, this team, this Oilers team, I think has the highest ceiling out of any team left in the playoffs. They have the best player in the playoffs, and that's really what it comes down to at this. If everything's going as good as it possibly can, the way that they've played in these last couple games, they have the highest ceiling, and there's no reason to see why they can't win a cup this year.
Yeah, and I think the adversity too. You look at McDavid, the best player in the series, like we mentioned already, the penalty he picked up that he was super frustrated with to begin overtime, and then he was robbed on that scoring opportunity towards the end of the period as well, where it was an incredible stick save from Ottinger, sort of waiting out McDavid. It was like a duel. Both of them headed McDavid going to his left and just trying to sort of wait for that crease to open up, but Ottinger just stuck it out. And at that point, it felt like that might have been the opportunity that slipped away from McDavid and this Oilers team. But to bounce back and respond quickly and double overtime, I thought was sort of indicative of the makeup that they have right now.
Yeah, 100%. That was actually my very next point, was that stick save by Jake Onger. It seemed like after that is where a worse team, maybe an Oilers team in the past, where they kind of crumble and then they start to let this game slip away from them. But this, having that ability to just stay with the game and missing that opportunity, missing just a huge goal-scoring opportunity and still being able to win. Winning the game 3-2 is unlike the Oilers, as we've seen all playoffs long. Stuart Skinner has really stepped up these last 2 games for the Oilers. In my opinion, if we keep seeing him play like this, they are going to be going to the Stanley Cup playoffs, or Stanley Cup finals, excuse me. Is there something else that you would like to see from the Oilers, maybe Jeremy or TJ, before we start talking about the Stars?
I mean, they just need to keep playing like this. I mean, right now I think they're playing better than anybody else in the league. And like I said, if they can continue to play like this, I don't think anybody can stop them. It's just a matter of consistency, and we've seen them go through this stretch. They had that 18-game win streak, I believe, from like December to January, where they tied the record. And so they've shown the ability to go on runs like this, where the defense and the goaltending can step up. If they can keep this consistency, they're incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think my biggest thing is, like I talked about, we know the special teams is incredible with them. Maybe would prefer to see, and I thought they did a really good job last night playing the 5-on-5, but in that Canucks series, it felt like they were a little reliant, I thought, at times on the power play. Not the only team in the postseason, really, that has had that problem. You can make a similar case for the Rangers as well. So, maybe nitpicking a little bit, but I mean, overall, I think, like Jeremy said, they are playing up to what we know they can, and if they keep this up, the Stanley Cup Finals should be in their future for sure.
100%. But going to the Stars side of things, they dropped the first game against the Colorado Avalanche in the second round. They're doing similarly here, losing the first game to the Oilers. What do the Stars need to do to kind of be more well-rounded, maybe even like not giving away home ice advantage this early? I mean, that's a hard thing to do, not having home ice advantage for the remainder of this Western Conference Final.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned last round the fact that they dropped game 1, and in that game, though, they led just about the entire way through, built up the 3-0 lead, and watched that sort of crumble away. And they led just about the entire series against the Avalanche. So I kind of thought that they got punched in the mouth a little bit in this game, and an Oilers team, again, to respond from a 7-game series and coming out with the level of physicality. I don't know if the Stars were caught off guard, but I ultimately, I think that we obviously know they have the the wits to be able to mount this type of a comeback. They just did it in the last round, at least from being in an 0-1 hole. But outside of Sagan last night, there really wasn't all that much offensive production, and they're going to need to do a better job, because as much as Skinner has been playing well, he hasn't been, nails for the entire postseason. And I think you start to put the pressure on Edmonton's goalkeepers, and then you can potentially try and find a way to kind of find a crack in that armor.
Right, and I'm not too worried about the Stars. I mean, you talk about them going down 0-1 to the Colorado Avalanche. They went down 0-2 against the Vegas Golden Knights, which is arguably an even better team. They dropped both of those games at home. This team is incredibly deep. They can get scoring from anywhere. That's been really their specialty all year round. They obviously have that top line. They're young guys and they're old guys. Sagan really stepped up in that first game. But when Jake Ottinger plays like he does, and I love Jake Ottinger, he's one of my favorite goiltenders in the entire sport to watch. You talked about that save on McDavid. He does one of those every night, it seems like. But their team is just so deep, they just need to get the offense going, and they'll get it from somewhere. But they do have this tendency to start slow, and against a team like the Oilers with such offensive firepower, you cannot continue to start slow.
Yeah. In the last series, what impressed me so much with the Stars was they really shut down McKinnon, Makar, and Mika Rantanen. And after that first game, Makar, has an unbelievable game one in that series, and then he kind of goes quiet through the middle part of that series. Of course, they are without Valeri Nichushkin for most of that, and that kind of derailed their team. You kind of saw a lot of offense go out the window with his exit. For the Dallas Stars, though, I believe that they are very reliant on scoring kind of from the point. Miro Heiskanen has been such a great player on the blue line for them the entire playoffs. He's probably been their best player, in my opinion, in the playoffs. Is he able to kind of hold off the special Edmonton Oilers forwards while he needs to also kind of provide offensively for the Dallas Stars, as we've seen in the past series?
That's where I get a little concerned. I mean, we saw it even on that overtime, that double overtime goal. I mean, you saw two Stars get caught up in the forecheck in the offensive zone, and then the three Stars that were back on defense get funneled to one side. So Connor McDavid had a whole half of the ice to himself, and it doesn't all go back to Heiskanen, but it's that kind of pressure, the speed that the Oilers have coming out of the defensive zone. It creates a lot of odd man breaks, and the Stars need to be able, because their defensemen are very aggressive offensively. So it's just something that they need to adjust. It's not really like something they can't deal with, but it's something they need to be more mindful of.
Yeah, and just being mindful with that top-end talent, obviously, like we talk about with the Oilers having two of the best players in the world, especially in those types of instances where, we saw, like we mentioned, that McDavid got that opportunity at the end of the first overtime period, and he had the ice all to himself in the beginning of the second overtime period, especially in those key moments where, the Oilers are, it's towards the end of the period, right before a break, they're going to try and load up on their top end guys. And like Jeremy said, you just have to be more aware, more prepared for those types of situations to make sure that you're not overly aggressive on the back end.
Yep. So that'll wrap it up for our first segment here. Oilers beating the Dallas Stars 3-2 for the first game of that series. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the playoffs as a whole, what these guys have seen, because we have other people's point of views now. You're not just listening to my voice on my opinions for it. So we'll be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit. The that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, we are back for our second segment of the night, where we will be talking about the playoffs as a whole, what we've all seen from it, and I'm gonna just start right with you, Jeremy. Any key takeaways? Any teams that are kind of separating themselves from the pack for you here?
Well, yeah, like I was talking about in that first segment, I think if the Oilers can continue to play defense like they are right now, they should be considered cup favorites. They kind of build their team a way that the other three teams don't. Generally, when you're looking at cup teams, it's built from, at least in the past, it's built from the goaltender out. You generally need a hot goalie to win the cup, but the way that the Oilers do it, they kind of do the opposite. They have that offensive engine, and then they kind of deal with the rest of it. It's kind of the opposite of two philosophies, and when they can get even average defense, that offense really shines through. So they're the team that, looking at it right now, I think has is my cup favorite.
Yep. And for you, TJ, is there anybody that stands out for you?
I mean, I think that the Panthers really are just such a tough out, night in, night out. Speaking from experience a little bit as a Bruins fan here, and having to watch that forecheck game in and game out. Yeah. And that was something that the Rangers definitely became aware of in their game one matchup, where we saw a streak of, I believe it was 14 minutes where the Rangers were unable to get a shot on goal. There was another streak already tonight where they had gone 10 minutes without a shot on goal. The Panthers they get their bodies, they get their sticks on any type of loose puck, and they bring that extra level of physicality as well. And they are sort of built around the goaltending as well, with Bobrovsky, the monster that he is in net. The Panthers, I think, are, again, it's a little bit hard for me as a Bruins fan after, how physical and sort of murky that series got at times, but you have to pay your respects to them because they are a deep team, they're a physical team, and they have just about every single tool you would need from them in order to put together a cup contender.
Yeah. TJ, how many times in your lifetime have you been able to say that the Bruins got out-muscled in a game, in a series? It's not many, is it?
It's not many. I will say in recent years, they haven't necessarily, since really, the loss of Chara and those like super physical Bruins teams, when you have Chara and Bergeron sort of holding it down. But no, I mean, absolutely credit to the Panthers for the style of play that they have. Again, when you're on the losing side of it, it feels a little bit dirty, but at the same time, that's hockey, and you do have to give them credit.
Yeah, trust me, a lot of these Rangers fans are going to say that this is definitely a dirty team, especially from that call in the first period of tonight's game on Alexander Wennberg not going the Rangers' way, which is a little bit funny that you said the Oilers, Jeremy, and you said the Panthers, TJ, because I have the Rangers winning the Stanley Cup, and I've had the Rangers winning the Stanley Cup since the start of these playoffs. I think that team is by far the most complete. It starts with how Jeremy described how people make a cup contender is the goaltender out. Igor Shesterkin is by far and away, in my opinion, the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. That guy makes insane saves after insane save after insane save, night in and night out. What he does is just spectacular. It reminds me of a former New York goalie that I watched a lot growing up, in Henrik Lundqvist, of course. That might just be helmet scouting, but I still think it's very similar. But for the Rangers, their top six is insane, which impresses me how the Panthers are able to compete with that top six. When I did the breakdown of this series, I said that that's where the Rangers needed to separate themselves, is through their scoring and superstars. How Mika Zibanejad has been amazing. How Artemi Panarin, Vincent Trocheck have been able to be amazing throughout the playoffs. I thought that they've needed to continue that. in game one, they sort of did, sort of didn't, and in game two, right now, we have a goal from Vincent Trocheck. So it's going to be interesting to see how this series does play out, and how, it's Igor Shesterkin versus Sergei Bobrovsky is the story of this series right now. 2-0 the first game. How big was that for Sergei Bobrovsky to get a shutout in that game one?
Yeah, I mean,
go for it.
The first two periods, he wasn't necessarily tested all too much. I thought that the Panthers, again, that forecheck just sort of limiting opportunities for the Rangers. But when the Rangers had their opportunities, they were definitely real chances there where they got a couple breakaways. There was that span where they were just firing shots on Bobrovsky. And I think that he absolutely, Shesterkin is one of, if not the best goalie in the NHL, but Bobrovsky won that duel in game one. And to be fair, the second goal, I mean, I'm not sure where you want to go. If you want to go a blame pie here in terms of how much you want to get on Shesterkin's case for that, basically an own goal for the Rangers there. Thought he was good, but round one went to Bobrovsky, and to your point, or to your question, that was absolutely massive for the Panthers in game one.
The one thing with the Rangers that I've seen really in these playoffs, aside from the first series with the Capitals where they dominated, is even though they won and kind of felt like the better team against the Carolina Hurricanes, when I was watching those games, aside from when they were on the power play, they felt like they were getting outplayed in for large segments of it. Like, they would win a period here or there, like they won the first period of the first game, and they won the last period of the series pretty convincingly. But in the middle between that, it felt like they were just kind of scraping by, and I'm getting the same kind of feeling from this series as well. I mean, we've talked about how they've gone a long time without a shot already in this game, and in game one as well. They just don't feel like they have, and Shesterkin has carried them on his back. Shesterkin has been incredible. And when you have a goalie as hot as Shesterkin, it's hard to bet against them. The issue is you're going against Bobrovsky, who can also do the same thing. And maybe when you get to the Stanley Cup final, you might be going up against Ottinger, who also did the same thing. I mean, he made like 30 straight saves last night. But like, I don't know, this Rangers team, to me, it doesn't feel like they dominate any of these series that have been against contenders so far. They haven't really dominated it to me. It's a little concerning.
Yeah, I might have been fooled from that Carolina Hurricanes series because I believe the Carolina Hurricanes were maybe the third best team in the Eastern Conference this year. I thought that they were amazing. From top to bottom, that team was so good. I love Sebastian Aho. I think he's an amazing player in hockey. So I believed in the Rangers when they went up 3-0 a lot. So that might have been my mistake, but 1-1 right now through this game. It's starting to go into the second intermission, still 1-1. So we'll see how that one plays out. This is a huge game, of course, for this series. If the Panthers take both games on the road, that may spell death, although it didn't for the Dallas Stars, as you mentioned, against the Vegas Golden Knights. Is there any teams in these playoffs that kind of were very underwhelming to you guys, that maybe burnt out, that you thought were going to go far?
I mean, I don't know how far I necessarily saw them going, but definitely has to feel like another disappointing ending for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And obviously, as a result, they end up firing their head coach. But it does just feel like, especially the way I thought they outplayed the Bruins and, they almost pulled off the 3-1 comeback. But, just another sort of opportunity there that just slipped through their hands. And this is a Bruins team, as much as they did overachieve for a lot of people's expectations headed into the season. By the end of the year, they were not playing their best hockey, and they still, in the points department, were able to take advantage by the fact that just about every game went to overtime for them, and they were losing in OT but still getting a point out of it. But I think that it was due change for the Maple Leafs to go ahead and fire their coach, but got to feel like, again, another opportunity that slipped away for them.
Right. I mean, the Maple Leafs just are never going to beat the Bruins, are they? They just aren't. It's always gonna go to 7, and it's always going to be one of those heartbreaking losses for a Maple Leafs fan. I thought the Vegas Golden Knights got a tough draw, though. They're going up against one of the deepest teams that I've seen in a really long time in the Stars. And you could make the argument that Vegas was the second best team in the West. I mean, they were the wild card team, but it's because they did the cap manipulation with the LTIR for the second year in a row. And you can debate that whole
and that's
whether
what I
or
was
not
gonna say
thing.
Is that the reason they got this draw, in my opinion, is 100% because of themselves. You're keeping Mark Stone's probably their best player offensively. You're keeping him on the shelf. And it's very much on purpose. They don't even hide it anymore. So,
right. And it's kind of unfortunate because I would have liked to see how far they go. I think they beat any other team. I mean, they took the Stars to 7, and I mean it was a great series, that one. I really do think that those two teams match up. I mean, that was the Western Conference Finals matchup last season for a reason. You know, it's not like those two teams changed all that much. And that's a team I'm a little disappointed by, but it's death by your own poison kind of situation.
Yeah. Well, quickly on that note, you know, we are obviously in this era of sports fandom where it's very much, you know, championship or bust, ring culture, and the sort of diminishing importance of the regular season. But these are instances where, you know what, you have tougher draws when you don't necessarily play your best ball during the regular season, and ultimately they were one of the teams this sort of postseason run that suffered from it.
Yeah, no, for sure. For me, the most underwhelming team was the Winnipeg Jets. How many playoffs in a row can Connor Hellebuyck completely ghost and they keep him as their number one goaltender?
He's so good, though.
He always seems like a Vezina Trophy candidate, and then he has a 5.4 goals against average in the playoffs. And what happened here? It's so disappointing seeing that Winnipeg Jets team go out, because they were contending for a President's Trophy halfway through this year. That was a good team for most of this year, so I was shocked. We'll wrap this second segment and your guys' night up with any predictions here going the rest of the way: Eastern Conference Final, Western Conference Final, or Stanley Cup.
I mean, I know that you said you are on the Rangers to win it all this year. I think I'm leaning Panthers right now. I was surprised to see that they were actually the favorites headed into this series, betting wise. But, you know, I think that I'm very high on the Panthers right now. I see a matchup between them and the Oilers in the Stanley Cup Finals. And from there, I think it's a super tough call. I guess if I were to plant my flag in either one right now, I think I'd probably lean with the Panthers. But again, it's going to be, I think that all four teams that remain are extremely worthy of being here. So we should have some good series on our hands.
For sure. And then for
you, and I mean, the good news is it's going to be a new Cup winner this year. You know, it's going to be a new team that wins it. I kind of have my bias. Like I said, I love watching Jake Ottinger play. The Stars are kind of my second team because he's there, and I kind of want them to win it. But I think the Panthers are gonna do it. The way they play physically against every team, just dominating them. It's hard to do that matchup for 5, 6, 7 games. You know.
Yeah, for sure. I completely understand why you guys are leaning that way. It definitely looks like they are the favorites in this series, especially if they can take this second game. But that'll wrap it up for our second segment, and that'll wrap it up for Jeremy and TJ. Thank you guys for coming on. Really had a blast with you guys talking about hockey. So thank you guys. You guys could check them out at the GSMC Sports Network. I'll definitely link their podcasts and their show playlists in the description. But with that being said, we'll take our second break of the night, and then when I come back, I'll be talking about the New Jersey Devils and their hiring of Sheldon Keefe.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, guys, we are back with our third segment of the night. Once again, shout out TJ, shout out Jeremy. Thank you guys for coming on. If you guys are still in the stream watching here, but we'll be talking about Sheldon Keefe and how he got hired as the Devils' next head coach. This news dropped, I believe it was yesterday, a little bit later in the day. But before we get into that, I'd like to remind you guys that if you would like to or if you guys would like to support the show, you can use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. Any questions that you have, you could also put that in the notes there, and then I can read it live on air for you guys. But with that being said, we are going to get right into Sheldon Keefe, the former Toronto Maple Leaf head coach, who he was in Toronto for the last 5 years, taking them to the Stanley Cup playoffs in every single playoffs that he was with them. Had an amazing record in the regular season. He was a fantastic head coach for Toronto. Fantastic regular season head coach. He just could never get it done in the playoffs. And when he left Toronto, that's what he said. He made a statement once he left saying, thank you to the city, thank you to the fans, thank you to all the people in the organization. I didn't get it done in the playoffs, and that's why I'm not there anymore. He really understood that. And when you're on a team like Toronto, when you're on a team like the Maple Leafs, that's really what it is. You need to win. You need to win in May. It does not matter what you do the other 11 months of the season, the other 11 months during the off season. If you don't put a team together, if you don't put the lines together, and if you don't execute, when it comes to the playoffs, you are not going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs head coach for long. We see this in so many sports. We see this Lakers organization. We see this Cowboys. We see this, perennial winners, Yankees, Red Sox, all these fan bases that are spoiled from winning, for the lack of a better term. They expect greatness. And when it doesn't happen in Toronto especially, the hockey capital of the world, you're gonna face repercussions, and he had to face repercussions. Once again, this wasn't because he was a bad coach. He just didn't get it done in the playoffs. Now he's going to the New Jersey Devils, and what is their problem right now is they can't make it to the playoffs. They had high hopes. They really probably should have made it as that second wildcard spot over the Washington Capitals. However, they just failed to do so. And they end up getting a high draft pick or a lottery pick instead. They have the talent put together on paper here. Just looking at this team, it's a very young and great team. First off, you have absolute superstars in Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Timo Meier. Eric Howla is a great depth piece. Alex Holtz is an amazing young forward. You have Andre Palat. You have Curtis Lazar, just great pieces on this team put together to win. On the back end, John Marino has been a serviceable defenseman, a top four defenseman. You have Luke Hughes, who is a very young, budding defenseman. Simon Nemec, who is an amazing young defenseman. He might be the best out of his draft class when it come to the defensemen in that class. Of course, that being the 22 class. That we saw David Jiricek, Denton Matejchuk all coming in, both of those guys from the Columbus Blue Jackets, two defensemen. So far, Simon Nemec looks like the top defenseman of that draft class. For them, they're really lacking goaltending, and another big problem is Dougie Hamilton is on. It was injured for most of this year, and he's been injured ever since he really came to New Jersey, when he came from Carolina back in 2021, I want to say it was, when he came to the New Jersey Devils. He's always been injured, so if they could get him back, that would be a huge addition. He's always been great when he's been healthy. A big problem for them, though, the biggest red flag for the New Jersey Devils is goaltending. They do have Jake Allen former Blues goaltender, probably a bottom 10 goaltender in the league, and then Kaapo Kähkönen is backing up, but he is also a UFA. They do have a lot of money to work with this offseason. They have about $20 million to work with, and they don't really need to re-sign anybody. They could re-sign Chris Tierney if they want to. Dawson Mercer is due for a big contract. That's another great top six piece that they enjoy. He's 22 years old, but really the core of this team is so young. They're already on contract. You have $20 million to use. They're going to be big spenders this offseason free agency. I'm very interested to see what they do with this roster. They really need to make up about 10, 15 points in regular season points to make it to the playoffs, to make it to that next step. And I believe Sheldon Keefe, first off, he is a big step in doing so, but you're going to need to spend money in free agency, which I believe they're getting ready to do. When it comes to the New Jersey Devils, I believe they got set back a couple years ago when Johnny Gaudreau didn't come to New Jersey, or didn't go to New Jersey. He was very heavily rumored to be between New Jersey and Philadelphia, ends up going to Columbus, having a pretty successful tenure in Columbus now, but you could only imagine what this team would be able to do, what this team would have been able to do if Johnny Gaudreau was on it. Just imagine a line of Johnny Gaudreau, Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt. Then your second line is a combination of Timo Meier, Nico Hischier, Andre Palat. Third line going to be something like Dawson Mercer, Curtis Lazar, Eric Howla. And then really any three on the fourth line could do. Alexander Holtz is another name that I haven't even mentioned here. He could be a scoring fourth line option. And then you do need help on the back end. You're really hoping that Luke Hughes takes another step forward. All the Hughes brothers are so great that there's just greatness in that bloodline. Quinn and Jack have already proven to be maybe even top 20 players in the NHL. And now it's Luke's turn. He's only 20 years old, and he definitely can do so. What a great addition for the New Jersey Devils Luke Hughes is. But if they could add a superstar defenseman in free agency, maybe as a trade in this offseason for their draft pick, actually, I'm gonna look to see where they're drafting real quick. They have the 10th overall pick in this draft, so we will see what they decide to do with that, if they stick and pick or if they use that as a trade to get that top two defensemen on their team that they're missing, that it looks like would help this team a lot. I think that it would help this team a lot and go a long way into getting this team into the playoffs. But as Sheldon Keefe goes, once again, as I said, he is an amazing regular season. He's an amazing regular season coach. He was he had the best points percentage of a Toronto Maple Leafs head coach in the regular season of all time, with a minimum of 5 seasons coached. That's an impressive stat. It's in Toronto. This is a storied franchise. So doing something like that in Toronto is very impressive for Sheldon Keefe. I am shocked that he wasn't able to get it done in the playoffs. It's just the Boston Bruins monkey on the back. Jeremy was talking about that in the last segment, or Jeremy and TJ were both talking about it in the last segment. Sheldon Keefe might have been just a product of that Boston Bruins team that just seems like you could never get past if you're Sheldon Keefe, if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. That was unfortunate because that core, of course, is so good, and Sheldon Keefe is a good head coach. I can't state this enough. It wasn't his fault, anything that happened in Toronto. He just didn't get the job done, and when that happens, you get fired. You see it, as I said, in many sports. So unfortunate for him, but we'll see if he could turn it around. It's an old additive in hockey that the second stop for a coach is always its most successful. This is Sheldon Keefe's second stop. We'll see what he decides to do. Of course, he was fired by the Toronto Maple Leafs, so he could have really just sat on the couch collecting the paycheck for a couple years while he lets the league play out and sees the best opportunity. But he decided that this New Jersey Devils job was the best opportunity for him. It's going to be weird seeing him not in Toronto. 5 years with the Maple Leafs, he was really the not the face, but he was the boss of this core for the last 5 years, really since it's been together with John Tavares. So not seeing him as the head coach is going to be kind of a little bit jarring for me, but he's off to greener pastures in New Jersey, hopefully. For Sheldon Keefe, of course, everybody in the hockey world wishes him nothing but the best. He's such a class act guy. If you guys haven't seen his farewell video to Toronto, what a classy guy he is. So that'll wrap it up for this discussion on Sheldon Keefe, the New Jersey Devils head coach. And when I get back for my third break of the night, we will be talking about Gabriel Landeskog, the Colorado Avalanche captain. Can he make a return next year? And what does that look like for the Colorado Avalanche?
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, guys, we are back with our fourth segment of the night. Is Gabriel Landeskog on the way back? New reports from NHL.com, from Ryan Bolding at NHL.com, says that Gabriel Landeskog is planning on playing for the Colorado Avalanche next season, but he just does not know when right now. He said he was very ambiguous with his return date. He said between mid-September and start of April. That is the regular season, so we get no information from that, but we could look forward to seeing him play next year. Colorado Avalanche captain Gabriel Landeskog, I actually do have a picture of him that I could put up for you guys. This is, for those of you that don't know, Gabriel Landeskog, the captain of the Colorado Avalanche, won the Cup with them in 2022, has been the one of three members of this core for many years now. Of course, it's been Mikko Rantanen, Nathan MacKinnon, and Gabriel Landeskog for the Colorado Avalanche, a part of the best line in hockey. People have named it. He has not played for 2 years. He has not played since they won the Stanley Cup in 2022. That was his last game. So the 31-year-old, on his way back, he suffered he had a cartilage transplant surgery on his right knee in May of 2023. Was ruled out for this regular season. Before that, he had a quad surgery during the 2020 postseason and knee surgery twice in March 2022 and again in October of 2022. That's why he missed all of the 2022-2023 season. He was supposed to be out 12 weeks when that happened, ended up being 2 years. For Gabriel Landeskog, it's been unfortunate not seeing him play hockey. We dearly miss him in the hockey world. He is such a great guy, such an amazing figure, such an amazing player. Seeing him night in, night out is something really special. He is one of my favorite players to watch, one of my favorite players to follow. I had him on my fantasy hockey team a couple years back. He really helped me win that league. But for Gabriel Landeskog, it is very unfortunate not seeing him play hockey. As I said, the Colorado Avalanche captain, he is a star in this league, part of the best line in hockey, Mikko Rantanen, Gabriel Landeskog, and Nathan MacKinnon. So yeah, it's just so unfortunate not seeing him play. Hopefully he comes back. But my biggest question for when he does come back, what does that look like? Can he step back in and play in the same form? He hasn't played in 2 years. Before that, he's had injuries galore in 2020 and then all of the last 2 seasons. It's been an unfortunate career for Gabriel Landeskog up to this point. Missing his 29 and 30-year-old season is very unfortunate. Now he's 31 years old, so you could assume that he's definitely lost some speed in his skating, and that's a little bit scary for him. He is more of a power forward anyways, but still having that speed to keep up with Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen is very important on this team and on this line. So not being able to do so is a little bit worrisome for Gabriel Landeskog. And when you're talking about such a fantastic scorer being away from the game, of course it was only lower body injuries, so he's not really suffering from he's able to shoot still. But we don't know what that timeline looks like. We don't know how long he has been without skating, without a stick in his hands, without doing anything really when it comes down to hockey, of course. He's been working out. He's been doing physical therapy, doing all this stuff. So he's not going to be he's going to be worth it for the Colorado Avalanche to get back. But really, when you're looking at this Colorado Avalanche team, what do they need? Well, for them, they were such a fantastic team until they weren't. And when they weren't, it was when Valeri Nichushkin went down or went out. NHLPA kind of suspended him, of course. Not kind of. They did suspend him, of course. But so you're relying on Gabriel Landeskog coming back next year and replacing that Valeri Nichushkin-filled hole in the Colorado Avalanche. That's difficult to do, though. Valeri Nichushkin led the team in goal scoring in the playoffs. He was having the best playoffs of his career. Playing on that first line, he was doing so well, especially on the power play for the Colorado Avalanche. Now you're without him, and you're getting a Gabriel Landeskog back that is worse. What does this team look like next year? I think there are legitimate concerns for them. Maybe not missing the playoffs, because that is a far fall from grace, but it wouldn't be an utter surprise for them to not be in the mix next year. You're talking about this Western Conference where you have teams on the up. I don't think the LA Kings are going anywhere anytime soon. You have the Edmonton Oilers, who look like they're a perennial playoff team, and then the Vancouver Canucks look like they're winning the Western Conference every year for the next 6 years because of how well that team is structured. You have other Pacific teams that can make a splash too. The Anaheim Ducks could definitely turn their franchise around. They're going through a complete rebuild right now, but next year could be the first year that they're kind of starting to be out of it. And then you have, of course, the Vegas Golden Knights, who I believe is a perennial playoff team, maybe for as long as their franchise is in existence. And then when you're talking about the Central, you have the Wild, who is always in the mix. You have the Stars, who look like they're not going anywhere anytime soon. You have the Winnipeg Jets, who look amazing. And then you have the Nashville Predators, who are always in the mix. So it's not a complete surprise if they are kind of on the outside looking in next year. You also have the Calgary Flames, who could definitely make a splash next year. So this team, I'm not going to start to sound the alarms quite yet for the Colorado Avalanche, but I think that maybe the bells should start maybe chiming a bit because it's a different team. Without Valeri Nichushkin, this team looks a lot worse. Of course, you still have your three superstars in Kale, Mikko, and Nathan McKinnon. You also have Arturi Lehkonen, who has been amazing. But beyond that, you still have Casey Middlestat right now is an RFA. You're going to need to re-sign him. On the back end, you still have Devin Taves for the next many of years until 2031. You have Josh Manson for the next 2 years, but he's 32 years old. And beyond that, not too many amazing defensemen. Right now, they have 4 defensemen tenured, and one of them is the 32-year-old Josh Manson. And then when you're talking about forwards, they only have 6 forwards on contract right now. You're only filling up half a roster, basically, right now, and $15 or $16 million in cap space to work with in this offseason. So it's definitely a little bit scary for the Colorado Avalanche. Of course, once again, getting Gabriel Landeskog back will be very, very important. And if they're able to get Valeri Nichushkin back, there's no question this team is a playoff team. But we don't know if that 6 month, limit on his suspension is really 6 months, or if it is more than that, or if it could potentially be maybe this is the last we've seen of him in a Colorado Avalanche uniform. their GM came out, or their owner came out today and said, I want to say that he can never play for the Colorado Avalanche ever again. We're just going to have to see. And of course, it's all reliant on Valeri Nichushkin. So it seems like the Colorado Avalanche are hoping to get him back, hoping that he can clean himself up and become a Colorado Avalanche player once again. But we'll see how that plays out. And once again, Gabriel Landeskog will be playing next year, as he said. That is a huge sigh of relief for the Colorado Avalanche fans. But is it the same Gabriel Landeskog that we're used to? Being away from the game for 2 years is very, very hard to do so. So that'll wrap it up for our fourth segment. And when I get back, we will be talking about the Rangers-Panthers Game 2 as it is coming to an end right now, talking about what this could mean and the score of it currently. Alright guys, we are back with our fifth and final segment of the night where we'll be talking about the Rangers and the Florida Panthers in Game 2. I was able to watch the first period before I got on this show, and since then it has been the exact same. It is still 1-1 in this game. The third period is just now starting. It's 17 minutes and 40 seconds left in the third period, so fortunate for me, it seems like I'll be able to watch the end of it. But unfortunate for me, I am not able to really declare a winner just yet, so I can't really talk about what this game means for each team because it's 1-1. We don't know. Either team could win this from this point on, so I guess I'll just talk about what it means for each team to win. We talked about it in that second segment, the Florida Panthers, how great they're playing. What I saw in this first period is how they're just dominating physically on this New York Rangers team. If you guys were able to watch that first period, there was a moment there where it was a Dmitry Orlov blow to Alexander Wenberg on his head. It looked like it was going to be a 5-minute major, but they only called it 2 minute because most of the contact was in the body, but the initial contact was in the head. So I was a little bit shocked to see that. Of course, it's playoff hockey. That might be the reasoning the officials kind of use with themselves. When you're making a call like that, you can't really give 5 minutes out in playoff hockey. Show me the times that they've done that and if it wasn't clear and obvious for why they did that. But for this game, you get a goal from the Florida Panthers by Carter Verhaeghe, Anton Lundell, Sam Bennett. Were the ones with the assist. How great has that line been for them in the playoffs? I feel like I talk about them almost every show I do here, talking about the Florida Panthers, talking about that line. It's what TJ said in that second segment for the Florida Panthers is that forecheck really for them, being so aggressive, so fast, so physical, and that's creating offensive zone turnovers. When you get offensive zone turnovers, they result in goals almost every time. So the Florida Panthers look very dangerous in this playoffs, but still, for me, the New York Rangers still look amazing. It seems like Sergei Bobrovsky is completely shutting the door. He really wants this cup. This will be the first of his career. What a storied career. If he doesn't get a cup, that would be a shame. Of course, you could probably blame being on the Flyers, Blue Jackets, and Panthers for that. Not really teams that hoist the Stanley Cup too often, since the Broad Street Bullies aren't a thing anymore, and Philadelphia and the Blue Jackets have sucked their entire history, and the Florida Panthers are the Florida Panthers. So unfortunate for Bob that he hasn't been able to hoist one, but he's really, really trying to do one. He's really trying to do so this year. Being able to win this game for the Florida Panthers would be everything. Going up 2-0 with 3 games at home, having to win only 66% of your home games to win a series is massive. So for the Florida Panthers, that would be such an important win for them, getting this, especially beating the New York Rangers on the road in Madison Square Garden. We talk about how loud that environment is and how hostile Madison Square Garden is. We saw it with the Knicks against the Sixers in their series, and then the Knicks against the Pacers in their series. We're seeing it again with the Rangers and how they use that to their advantage. So I would be utterly shocked if the Florida Panthers take both games on the road, but they definitely can, and they definitely have an opportunity to do so. The New York Rangers just aren't scoring, and that's a shock for me with how lethal and how deadly their top six is. Not seeing that that forward group get goals is a shock. Averaging half a goal per game right now in this Eastern Conference Final is not how you get it done. We talked about Sergei Bobrovsky absolutely shutting the door. Igor Shesterkin on the other side is definitely doing his part for the New York Rangers. Only 2 goals against in game 1, only 1 goal against so far through 44 minutes in this one. In hockey, if you're able to get only 2 goals against out of your goaltender, you should be winning hockey games. Igor Shesterkin is giving it to them, but Sergei Bobrovsky is, as TJ put it, out-dueling him. But it's a duel of 2 sharpshooters. It's not anything that we've seen before. These 2 goaltenders, these 2 Russian goaltenders, are absolutely going at it. I talked about it in my series preview, how important Igor Shesterkin and Sergei Bobrovsky were going to be for these respective teams, and they've really proved that to be right. The reason this series is looking like it is, the reason the Panthers are winning, and the reason that the Rangers aren't absolutely getting blown out of the water is because of these goaltenders. Of course, I can't talk too much on this game because I have not been able to watch it, but I definitely will do so and really give you guys my takes and opinions on this game once I come back on Monday from the weekend. But for the New York Rangers, they really need to win this one. It'll be so important if they do so. Splitting at home isn't the worst thing in the world. We see it all the time. They definitely can win the series from that point onward. But we're just scrutinizing everything that they do because, of course, they were the Stanley Cup favorites going into this one. President's Trophy winners. They unfortunately have the President's Trophy curse. They were looking to be the one team to break that curse, though. Of course, no team has won the Stanley Cup while also winning the President's Trophy since 2013 Chicago Blackhawks, I believe, were the last team to do so, win the Stanley Cup and the President's Trophy in the same year. So to see the New York Rangers doing poorly in this round isn't a shock to the people that have been following hockey for the last decade. It did seem like they were going to break the curse, though. I talked about it when they won up 3-0 against the Carolina Hurricanes. It's only happened a handful of times where a team has gone 7-0 through the first 7 games of the playoffs, and on every single one of those occasions, the team has at least made it to the Stanley Cup Final. So this would be, history if they are unable to do so. They were looking so dangerous. I guess the Carolina Hurricanes, it seems like they were able to crack a code when it came to this New York Rangers team. I'm just a little bit shocked that they are not able to kind of blow this one open, I guess I would say. These 2 teams are the best 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. We've seen it throughout the regular season. We saw it last year in the playoffs, how the Florida Panthers went all the way to the Stanley Cup. Of course, the New York Rangers not having the best of playoffs last year, but this year winning the President's Trophy, we clearly saw the difference. And it's not a surprise that these teams are the ones that we saw. Again, I am surprised that the New York Rangers are unable to score, I guess. Sergei Bobrovsky, of course, is a Vezina candidate this year, so he's been playing some of his best goaltending in his very storied career. But for the Florida Panthers, I don't see. This is what's hard for the Florida Panthers, because I don't think that they can keep this going consistently. It's not about anything about the physicality. That's of course going to be there. But getting this production from Bob it's not a shock. We've seen it throughout his career, but at this stage of his career, I think it's a little bit of a shock. I don't expect him to be what we're used to of seeing of Bobrovsky, being that top 5 goaltender in the league. Especially outdueling Igor Shesterkin, who is the best goaltender in the league. He proves that so often. It's a real surprise. And it's kind of funny that I'm saying this, that it's surprising that he's outdueling the goaltender on the other side, because let's look at this playoff run here. Igor Shesterkin right now against the Rangers. That's a top 5 goaltender in the league, in my opinion, the best. The second round, Jeremy Swayman. That's a top 5 goaltender in the league. A lot of people can say that he is the best, and I don't think I would argue with that entirely. And then in the first round, they play the Tampa Bay Lightning, Andrei Vasilevsky, who has been a top 5 goaltender in the league for the past decade. So I shouldn't be shocked that Bobrovsky is outdoing a goaltender that is fantastic, very impressive. Especially me being a Blue Jackets fan, watching it for my entire childhood, Bobrovsky outdueling fantastic goaltenders. But at this stage of his career, I can honestly say that I'm shocked that he's doing so. So that'll wrap it up for our Friday podcast. It was great. It was great to have Jeremy Lapidus and TJ McBrady on this show here, other creators from the GSMC Sports Network. Down in the description of this live stream will be their show podcast playlist links if you guys want to check them out. They do great work. But without further ado, that was the GSMC Hockey Podcast. If you guys would like to subscribe, follow, or like the show, please do so. It really helps us out. All the support that we get really does help us out. And of course, if you want to support the creators in any way, the tips and donations link is gsmcpodcast.net. But thank you for tuning in, and have a great evening.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn.